I like the little
You might have to close yourself out of the main stage if you're on it in the event. But we are now broadcasting.
Wow. All right. So welcome everyone. This is brand new for me and probably a lot of you. So we're going to go with it and see what sort of quirks come up along the way. So bear with us. I'll start out by saying thank you, first of all, to our amazing annual meeting lead. Laura Browney has done such an incredible job bringing this all together. So I want to say a big kudos and thank you to Laura for putting this together. And I recognize I need to introduce myself. I'm Jessica Brunecki, and I am the president of the board of the Colorado-Wyoming Association of Museums. And thank you all for being here. What a year it's been, right? So I've prepared just a statement and some remarks, and I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. I don't think we're going to take the full amount of time for this, but we'll go ahead and also stay and be happy to answer questions. We've got a number of board members here present, and we'd love to chat with you further. So we'll go ahead and dive in. Dear Family and friends, welcome to our 2021 annual meeting. It's been a year, and it's hard for me to believe that it's time for our annual meeting once again. We made it a really tough, but I think prescient decision in early March of last year to cancel our in-person meeting for 2020. And it was by far one of the hardest decisions we've had to make as a board. And I'm so thrilled that we're all able to gather here this year. And I know we're all looking forward to gathering again in person next year. More on that later. I could not be more proud of our board, who very quickly began exploring this idea of an online conference to ensure that we could continue to get together and that we could continue to provide professional development and networking that we all enjoy so much at our in-person events. And maybe even a little normalcy. I don't know. Is this the new normal? We'll have to wait and see. I'm thrilled that our board also came to the consensus to offer this, our 2021 annual conference to any of you. It's been a hard year for all of us, and I hope that this year's topic, Wellness Inside and Out, Museums and Healing, provides a space for us all individually and collectively to begin that healing, however that may look for you. During today's business meeting, I'll be guiding us through some CWAM updates. You'll see the agenda has been posted, I believe, under the video if you want to follow along. I'll hand over the reins to Caitlin for our treasurer's report, and I'm also thrilled to invite Steph Pendergast and Robert Henning to speak on our advocacy efforts through the pandemic. And then I will be wrapping up with a launch of our, or I should say a sort of a launch-ish of our online election of new board members for this year. But before we get into any of that, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors for this year. They're really the ones that are making this possible. So thank you to Craft Tours, Colorado Encyclopedia, Colorado Humanities, Far Horizon Exhibits, and to Past Perfect. Thank you so much for your support. Now I'll begin with some CWAM updates. So we made this pivot that I'm really proud of and I want to highlight. After this decision was made to cancel our 2020 annual meeting, our board really wanted to ensure that we could still provide those professional development opportunities to you, our family, especially in such uncertain times as we were facing in April of last year. And our incredible annual meetings team lead began reaching out to presenters that had agreed to present at the 2020 annual meeting about their willingness to convert their annual meeting sessions into remote workshops hosted on Zoom. And many of them agreed. Beginning in late May of last year, we held 5 remote workshops, and I'm going to list them off for you, and then I'm going to tell you, you can watch them if you missed any of them. We did online portfolios for museum professionals, which was presented by Dominique Alhambra, Jesse Dutton-Kenny, and Ashley Mugley. We also launched Apply Stronger, Resumes and Cover Letters, which was presented by Christina Kane and Caitlin Rummery. Third was Applying Basic Interpretive Principles to Written Communications and Program Development, which was presented by Karen Hostetter, Emily Jacobs, and Catherine Mercier. We had Image Processing, presented by Will Gregg. And finally, we had Mount Making for Beginners, which was presented again by Dominique Alhambra, Jesse Dutton-Kenny, and Ashley Moodley. And these workshops were also recorded and continue to be accessible on our YouTube channel, which I also wanted to point out, we launched a YouTube channel this year, which I don't think any of us thought we would ever get around to doing. So if you go to YouTube and you search for Colorado-Wyoming Association of Museums, you'll find us and you'll find these videos are accessible anytime you're interested. When I checked earlier this week, these videos had been viewed a combined 651 times. So we're thrilled that there's an appetite for this sort of video as well. I think given the success of them, we will also continue to do this sort of offering in the future as well. So stay tuned. This year's annual meeting sessions will be recorded as well. I don't know if we've communicated that much, but we know it's hard to choose when there are concurrent sessions. And this year, you'll be able to check our YouTube channel to see what you've missed or to rewatch any of the sessions that you would like to get back to. Next, I'm going to move into just a quick overview of our membership report. Our membership numbers have remained fairly steady over the past year. In June of 2020, we had 243 members, 180 of which were in Colorado, 57 from Wyoming, and 6 from other states. We know so many of you have had significant budgetary impacts, and we've been humbled by how many of you continue to support CWAM through your membership this year. Thank you. We currently have 223 members, 171 from Colorado, 48 from Wyoming, and 4 from other states. I also want to highlight that this year our membership chair initiated a change that was really important for us. She worked with PastPerfect to transition our membership records to their software. And it's much more streamlined, and I'm so proud of Heather's work to come to this very smart solution for us. Thank you, Heather. It's been a really great transition. Now, I'm gonna pause. I'm going to take a breath, and I'm going to invite Caitlin Rummery to step in and share the treasurer's report. There she is.
Hi, sorry about that. Hello, everyone. I'm Caitlin Rummery. I'm the treasurer for CWAM. To echo off of Jessica's sentiments, it was obviously a very difficult choice last year to cancel the conference, and Laura has done an amazing job pivoting and helping all of us pivot to be able to put this conference on and to put all of our workshops on. So after watching other professional organizations pivot and offer an online conference option in both paid and unpaid capacities, Laura, our annual meeting team leader, made the strong case to the board to offer our online conference free of charge and open to anyone, not just members. While our conferences are not open exclusively to members, members obviously get usually a discounted rate. So we just wanted it to be free to anyone who was interested. While we have not required a registration cost to offset the moderate costs associated with the virtual platform conference, we do have a paid vendor registration, and these vendors' continued support will greatly help offset the associated costs with the conference. And it was decided that any costs beyond that would be absorbed by CWAM's savings. Some of the costs we anticipate incurring include conference platform fees, such as this hop-in. We also incur Zoom fees for our conference or for our other programs and workshops. We also did some advertisement and graphic design. And then we also retroactively decided to include keynote speakers so that we could bring on some really great keynotes for the conference. Lastly, we, in case anyone is curious, have saved the scholarship budgets from the end of the 2019 conference, which comes from our auction revenue and our in-person conferences, and plan to offer them for our 2022 conference, and plan to offer as many scholarships as possible to offset that conference for the CWAM community. I know that that's always a big question is, well, what happened to that money? Don't worry, it's still there, and we still plan to offer lots of conferences. The agenda has a hyperlink to the full budget as it stands right now. Feel free to take a look at that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at treasurer@cwam-us.org. Thanks so much. I'll send it back to Jessica.
Thank you, Caitlin. And you will find the treasurer's report additionally as an attachment, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Laura, below the screen where our videos are populating. So take a look. And again, we'll be here if you have any questions. We'd be happy to talk them through. So next, I would like to invite two of our board members to share their thoughts on our advocacy efforts this year. We'll hear from Stephanie Pendergast, representing Colorado, and Robert Henning, representing Wyoming. You ready to go?
Can you hear me? Okay, so I'm going to assume that I'm good to go. So my name is Stephanie Pendergast. I am the advocacy team lead for CWAM. In my day job, I'm the associate collections manager at the Denver Art Museum. So advocacy involves engagement with state, local, and federal elected officials to more or less make the case for issues that matter to you and or your community. And the advocacy team with CWAM, we particularly keep tabs on the state of our states and legislative issues impacting our two-state region. The team is comprised of 5 board members, 2 state representatives who also represent our states on the Mountain Plains Museum Association board, and we also have 2 members who focus specifically on legislative and tourism for our respective states, plus the advocacy team lead. And so we are a resource for large and small museums, and we encourage everyone to reach out to us if you ever need advocacy assistance or guidance. And I always like to say that advocacy is for everyone. And while it's important to engage with elected officials all year, every year, it's especially important now as we continue to navigate the COVID world. It's been a tough year for everyone, and museums have been heavily impacted in a variety of ways, from reduced visitor capacities, canceled events, shutdowns, and in some cases, permanent closures. Members of our local, state, and federal governments need to know that museums are community anchors and that we need their support. Every February, CWAM board members attend Museums Advocacy Day, which is hosted by the American Alliance of Museums. In most years, we go to Washington, D.C. and actually visit the offices of these legislators. This year was 100% virtual, which was actually really great because we had record turnout for any advocacy year prior. And I believe we had over 600 advocates representing all 50 states, speaking with legislators and or their staff. These last few years, our primary asks provided by the American Alliance of Museums have been asking for support for the Office of Museum Services, which is within the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and to expand charitable giving incentives. This year, we also asked for additional COVID relief for museums, including easier access to PPP loans for nonprofits, increasing federal reimbursement for nonprofits that self-insure for unemployment, and increased funding for the SBA's shuttered venue operator grants. And for this particular program, we also asked that the fixed seating eligibility requirement be removed so that more museums could benefit from this program. Our final ask was that they sign an appropriations letter that specifies the requested funding levels for the Office of Museum Services and also the NEA and NEH for the upcoming fiscal year. The deadline to sign that letter was this last Friday. And there's been strong bipartisan support for these letters in the past, and we look forward to seeing what the final list of signatories looks like this year. CWAM had 7 board members participate in Advocacy Day this year, and we had a total of 16 advocates representing the Colorado-Wyoming region. I represented just Colorado this year, and our cohort covered all 9 legislative offices for our state, which included 2 newly elected officials, Senator John Hickenlooper, and Representative Lauren Boebert, who represents the Western Slope. Along with the asks requested by AAM, we also strive to share personal stories about our specific organizations that will resonate with the members of Congress, as they are most concerned with their specific state or district constituencies. So in addition to talking about COVID, we also talked about wildfires, because Colorado, of course, was particularly hard hit by wildfires last year. And our fabulous emergency preparedness chair, Christina Kane, put together an incredible Leave Behind PDF, highlighting the impacts of last year's fires on areas with cultural and heritage sites. And we had great conversations with the legislative staff. And for me personally, having participated for every year for the last 4 years, I've really loved watching our relationships with some of our with some of the longtime staff members of these legislators grow. And so now I'm going to hand the reins over to Robert Henning, who is our Wyoming Legislative and Tourism Rep, and he will talk about his experiences representing Wyoming the last 2 years at Museums Advocacy Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Steph. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Robert Henning. I'm the director at the Rockpile Museum in Gillette, Wyoming, and it's been my pleasure to help represent Wyoming the past 2 years on the CWAM advocacy team. I've attended AAM Advocacy Day each of the past 2 years. We were able to meet with both senators in person in DC in 2020 and all 3 members of Wyoming's delegation virtually this year. Both experiences were, I believe, very educational, both for myself, the other Wyoming members that attended, and the members of Congress. I really think we've reached them a little bit more than we have in the past about the value of museums and why it's important to have strong federal funding for these institutions. Most importantly, I think we've built those relationships. As Steph said, getting to know the members and their staff, knowing who to contact if we need help, if there's an opportunity with a grant, or just staying up to date on what's happening at our museums, keeping them informed is very important. And I think we've laid the building blocks to continue to advance and build those relationships. So CWAM, I think, is doing a great job with this. We need to continue to focus on advocacy in the years to come. Throughout this process, I've been able to learn about a lot of your museums in Wyoming, and particularly about the projects that have been funded by grants. We've been able to talk about those projects with our legislators and really highlight the importance of those federal dollars in our communities. We must continue to share those projects. We have to invite them to our museums, send them literature, send them whatever you have, tweet them, find a way to get our information in front of our elected officials. And this is not just at the federal level, this is local, state, and federal. We want them to think of us when they go to vote for reauthorizing IMLS or appropriating funds to IMLS, NEA, NEH, or even on the state level for appropriations to Wyoming Humanities or Wyoming Arts Council. They need to think of our museums and think of the particular projects. So invite them to your museum. Invite them to your museum. I can't say that enough. We need to get them, when they're back here in the state, to come and see us and learn what we're doing. Moving forward, I really think there is a few things Wyoming can advocate for. On the federal level, we need a grants to states program. If you know anything about Wyoming libraries, they receive over $1 million every year directly to the state library, which is then dispersed out to the county libraries in the state. Museums have no such program. If we can advocate strongly for this, it would really bring a lot more grant money back to our state. It would benefit Colorado as well. And so I think we can, as a team, advocate for a grants to states program. So please talk to Senator Barrasso, Senator Lummis, and Representative Cheney about this issue. I think it'll be hugely impactful. Secondly, there are several colleagues and I are working on the state level to try and advocate for museums. As most of you know, our state economy is not in great shape, and difficult decisions will be made in the next few years at the Wyoming State Legislature. So we need to be down there. We need to have a presence. We need to be talking about museums and the importance of arts funding, education funding, and funding to cities, towns, and counties that comes down to museums. So please reach out to your local legislators as well. We need to continue to have strong funding for Wyoming Humanities, Wyoming Arts Council, and then find possibly some new revenue streams for museums, whether that's through a line item in an education budget, a vanity plate for museums, changes to the museum district law. There are many options and many things we're advocating for to try to support museums in Wyoming. So I hope to continue to do that for the next few years. I want to support all the museums in Wyoming. So please reach out to me at any time. Call me, text me, email, whatever you can. We'll talk about what CWAM can help you advocate for on the state and federal level. So thank you, CWAM members, for your support and for allowing me to represent you. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you, Steph. It's always such a treat to hear about all of the great things that CWAM is doing for advocacy. Thank you. So switching gears just a little bit, we're going to move into a section about board elections. So bear with me. This year, we are conducting our elections online. Before I announce the candidates who are running, I'd like to thank all of the board members and committee members who are rotating off and who have stepped down from the board in the past year. Katie Conrad served as our Colorado State Rep. Thank you. Rhonda Frazier spent many years as our archivist. Thank you. Jeremy Johnson was our Wyoming Legislative and Tourism Representative for the past 3 years, did great. Carissa Kepner was our networking facilitator. Heather Thorwald has been our membership chair. Thank you. And finally, Britt Scholnick. What can I say about Britt? She has served in many, many roles on the CWAM board, most recently and very graciously stepping in to fill a gap as our communications team lead, despite not being in an elected role. But it's time now for us to let her go after nearly a decade of service. Thank you, Britt, for all that you have done for CWAM. And thank all of these people, if you see them at the conference, for their work towards CWAM. So this year, we have 4 openings for Colorado directors at large, and we have 2 openings for Wyoming directors at large. And someone, will be sending out a link to vote in the elections, likely in the e-blast later this week. We're going to leave the poll open for about a week, so don't feel pressured that you have to do it immediately. We'll send out a reminder. But here, I'm gonna take a minute here to talk about this year's candidates. We have all 3 of our current executive team up for re-election. So that is to say, myself, Jessica Brunecki, and our treasurer, Caitlin Rummery, are running for 2 of the Colorado Director at Large positions. That will be our 2nd election cycle, and we will be term limited at the end of that. Similarly, our treasurer, Alexis Grieve, is running for one of the Wyoming Director at Large positions. And just like I said earlier, she has served for 3 years. She will be term limited after her 2nd 3-year term. We also have some folks running for the first time, and they are Bailey Hughes and Nessa Kerr, who are running for the remaining 2 Colorado Director at Large positions. I'm thrilled. Bailey is relatively new in the field. She's a relatively recent graduate from the Museum Studies program at the University of Colorado Boulder. She's currently working on some grant-funded projects in the anthropology collection at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. And Nessa is, what can I say about Nessa? She's been a great advocate for us. She's joined us at AAM's Advocacy Day for, gosh, I think the last 4 years. She has done so representing the University of Denver's art collection. So she works there, and I believe she continues to teach dance as much as she can as well. So it'll be great to have both of their perspectives joining our board. And then lastly, but certainly not least, Robert Henning has done so much for us in an unelected capacity for so many years. I'm so thrilled to say that he is running for the remaining Wyoming Director at Large position in Wyoming and will be stepping into that role as Wyoming Legislative and Tourism Rep. So look for that ballot. And of course, let us know if you have any questions, and we will provide a space. If you have someone really brilliant that you want to write in, there's space for that too. So that leads us to our next chapter of this business meeting, which is discussing upcoming annual meeting locations and some updates in that regard. As you may recall, our last in-person annual meeting was in Gillette, Wyoming in 2019. And at that time, you, the membership, voted to host the 2021 annual meeting in Colorado Springs. However, with the pandemic keeping us remote this year, we've moved the Colorado Springs meeting to 2022. So next year we'll be in Colorado Springs. And the following year, if you haven't heard yet, let me be the first to tell you, this is very exciting. The American Alliance of Museums will be holding their annual meeting in Denver in May of 2023. And I'm thrilled to report that I'm already in conversation with the folks that are organizing the annual meeting in Denver for AAM on ways that we can partner in some fashion for 2023. That is to say, we will not be running our own annual meeting in 2023. We thought it was going to be a bit of a drain on resources, and some on the board questioned the support for running our annual meeting in April when AAM will be running their annual meeting in May in Denver. So happy to answer more questions about that if you want to stick around. So we would like to invite proposals for locations to host our annual meeting in 2024 at this time. So be thinking about it. If you have a location in mind, or if you think you might be the right fit, reach out. We'd be happy to answer questions about what that entails. And I will say, it would be great to get back to Wyoming if at all practical. Been up there since 2019. At this time, let's see how practical this is. I'd like to ask whether or not there's any new business. I'm not even sure if we can do that, Laura, but I want to put it out there because that's our typical agenda. Is there any new business that we need to address as a board, with the board, from the membership?
And you can just stick it in the chat if you have anything you want to bring up.
Otherwise, you know, I think we're in a space where we could also answer any questions anyone present has. So this is the end of our agenda. I recognize I never officially called our meeting to order, Laura. Alexis, is that the worst? Am I the worst? Here we are.
Second.
Fortunately, there was nothing to vote on in the meeting, so I think it's okay. Oh, Alexis got it. Great. Thank you, Alexis. Well, while I've got you here on camera, let me say thank you again, Laura, for all of the hard work you've put into this. Like I said, I don't think any of us ever thought we'd be here, but here we are, and it's going so smoothly. Thank you.
So far, so good. Make sure to come back and join us right here on the Past Perfect main stage for our first panel discussion this afternoon about land acknowledgements. Come prepared with questions for sure. We want to get as many of your questions as possible for that panel. It should be a good one.
Thanks, Laura. I see Robert threw a question into the chat, which is the idea to still have a CWAM only meeting at AAM? And I would say, if you have specific ideas, please bring them to me and to Laura, because I think we're going to be in this ongoing conversation with AAM about what's possible. So in some ways, I was thinking the low-hanging fruit could be organizing tours and, you know, trying to get as many AAM people out into our region and into our museums. I certainly think we could look at social and networking opportunities. We could see if there's a way we could, I don't know, be part of the selection process for sessions? Is there a way we could highlight our region through the sessions, or I don't know what? But it's early enough that I think we have a great opportunity to shape how we want it to move forward. Thank you, Robert.
We have time.
We do. A little.
Yeah. All right, and I just want to remind everybody, if you haven't heard, because I'm getting a couple questions in my Q&A, we are recording the majority of these sessions. There are a few that will be dealing with some sensitive topics, and we want people to be super open, so we will not be recording those, but your moderator will let you know which sessions those are, so you can feel more comfortable speaking about your personal experiences. But otherwise, we are recording all sessions, and you will be able to find them on the CWAM YouTube channel.
And how quickly will they be up there, Laura?
So I have access to them pretty much immediately. So as soon as we can, we'll get them up there.
That's great. Okay, wonderful. I wasn't sure if there would be a couple days delay, but it sounds like it's going to happen fast. Great.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, well, I think I will motion to adjourn this meeting. Am I allowed to do that?
I think so. Alexis, she'll tell us if we're out of line, but I think that's fine.
Alexis says we're good. All right.
Well, I'm happy to
All right,
hang
well,
around, maybe in the networking area, and answer any additional questions. So.
All right, everyone. Well, grab a bite, take a breath, and then we'll see you back for our land acknowledgement panel.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye.